Alright, let's start with a question that might sound ridiculous. What if your brain's most powerful tool for decision-making is actually holding you back from being creative? That's the wild conclusion from this study where scientists found that silencing part of a mouse's brain, the prefrontal cortex, made them better at solving problems. Wait, isn't the prefrontal cortex the seat of human intelligence? The thing that lets us plan, reason, and make smart choices? Turns out, sometimes it's the enemy of innovation. And honestly, this blew my mind. Let me explain why this discovery might change how we think about creativity, habit formation, and even neurodiversity. So here's the setup. Researchers trained mice to find a pup in a T-shaped maze. The mice initially relied on a win-stay strategy. Basically, I found the pup here last time, so I'll just go back. But when a sound cue was introduced that reliably pointed to the new location, something fascinating happened. The mice had to unlearn their old habit to adopt this better strategy. And get this, the part of their brain responsible for that stubbornness? The prefrontal cortex. When they silenced it, the mice switched strategies faster. Which makes me think, is overthinking literally hardwired into our biology? Like, are we evolutionarily programmed to cling to old habits until our brains say, screw it, let's try something new? Now, let's unpack this with some real talk. The prefrontal cortex is often called the brain's executive, the CEO that manages decisions, self-control, and planning. But this study shows it's also a gatekeeper that can block creativity. Personally, I think this explains why some of the most groundbreaking ideas come from people who think differently, literally. If your brain's CEO isn't micromanaging every move, you might be freer to notice patterns or solutions others miss. Like, imagine your prefrontal cortex as a hyper-controlling boss who's always like, nope, do it the way we did it last year. But when that boss is quieted, suddenly, the intern suggests a genius hack everyone else overlooked. The poker analogy the researchers used is actually spot on. New players obsess over math and probabilities, but pros rely on subtle cues, body language, timing tells. The prefrontal cortex might be the part that's crunching those numbers, but silencing it could let the player tap into intuitive, sensory-driven decisions. And this isn't just about mice. What many people don't realize is that our brains might face the same tension between rigid logic and adaptive intuition. Like, when you're stuck on a problem and then suddenly, get it, after stepping away, was your prefrontal cortex finally letting go? Maybe creativity isn't about working harder but quieting the part of your brain that resists change. Here's where it gets even more interesting, the study's implications for neurodiversity. The authors are now testing mice with autism-linked genes. If the prefrontal cortex is overly active in these models, could that explain certain cognitive rigidity patterns? And could non-invasive brain stimulation in humans help reset this system? From my perspective, this opens a door to rethinking therapies for conditions like OCD or ADHD, where breaking habitual thought loops is key. But it also raises ethical questions. Would we want to suppress someone's prefrontal cortex on purpose? That's the part that keeps us from touching a hot stove or yelling at our boss. There's a delicate balance here between innovation and chaos. Let me throw another angle at you. This study might explain why mindfulness practices work. The researchers compared shifting strategies to meditation, where you suppress rumination about the past or future to focus on the present. If the prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain that's always stuck in analysis paralysis, then techniques that calm that region could literally unlock new problem-solving abilities. Think about that, 2,500-year-old mindfulness traditions and cutting-edge neuroscience converging on the same insight. It's humbling, right? The brain's secrets aren't always in the newest tech but in understanding how evolution's kludgy systems interact. So here's my final thought. What if creativity isn't about generating ideas but about suppressing the part of your brain that blocks them? This study isn't just about mice, it's a mirror for human behavior. How often do we cling to outdated strategies because our brains default to what worked before? And what if the key to innovation isn't thinking harder, but thinking less? I'd love to hear your take. Have you ever had a breakthrough that came after you stopped overthinking? Drop a comment below. Let's chat about the paradox of smart brains and creative blocks.